Thank you, everybody, for joining us on a very, very special episode of DLO After the Show. And saying it like that, I kind of feel like it's one of those after-school specials for a very special episode, But hopefully this doesn't ultimately end up with my face on the back of a milk carton. So anyway, obviously, I'm Kenny, co-host with my lovely wife, Natasha.
Hello.
And we are joined today by none other than Kristin Booth, who plays Shane McInerney on, did I pronounce it right? Because we'll get into that in a second. But on Signed, Sealed, Delivered.
Story about that.
Perfect. From Signed, Sealed, Delivered. Welcome. First, I want to say thank you so much for joining us on the show. We really, really appreciate it. You are very, very engaging with all your fans on Twitter. So this is a real treat for us. Like, it really, really is.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me both. Both of you, thank you for having me.
So let's just dive right in really quick with the pronunciation of Shane McInerney.
It's McInerney.
McInerney.
Like Mac and Ernie, like Bert and Ernie, like McInerney.
Oh.
Like mac and cheese, Bert and Ernie. Just take the first.
I'm never going to be able to hear that name again.
Mac and Ernie.
Okay, that makes sense. See,
and
go ahead.
I'll share with you why I describe it that way, because when we shot the pilot, my dear friend Crystal Lowe, who plays Rita Hayworth, couldn't pronounce the last name to save her life, and it got to the point where I think it was Eric who went no, Mac and Ernie, then just get rid of the and, Mac and Ernie.
That's funny.
So that makes sense, because whenever you look at the way it's spelled out on IMDb and Wikipedia and all the other sites, it's like, so is that an L? Is that an I?
Yeah.
Mickle? Yeah. So Mac and Ernie, I will never mispronounce it ever again. So thank you so much. So that's something brand new that I just learned. Okay, so in doing some of my research on for this interview, I kind of dove a little bit into your past when it comes to and I know that Wikipedia isn't always accurate. People can just go and throw on whatever they want.
It says I'm 44. I'm actually 36.
Okay. Hey, you know what? It's one of those things. What?
You played that card very carefully.
I had to. Because it's like, what do I say? It's kind of like the scene in Talladega Nights with Will Ferrell. Was like, I don't know what to do with my hands, but it's my mouth this time. I'm like, I'm not touching that one.
Very smart man.
We've been married for 17 years. I've learned. But going back, looking at some of your roles that you've done. But even before we even do that, you were born and grew up in Canada, yes?
Correct. Yeah.
Right on. So was my wife. I am Canadian by proxy. I think that's how it works. She was on the other coast, though.
Yep, British Columbia.
Yeah.
Way up. I would live 4 hours from the Alaskan border, so I was way up.
Nice. Wow.
So
the West Coast is the best coast as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, and my mom grew up in Oshawa, so I still have family over there, and I've been there once. But we stayed in BC most of my life.
Right.
And me, I've only been to BC and Calgary, or Edmonton once, Alberta once. All right, so but you started out doing like Canadian theater and like TV, yeah?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so I was there's one that I scoured the internet looking for different interviews that you've done see whether or not anyone has brought this up, and I don't know if you know where I'm going with this. But I just really quick, before we even get into Signed, Sealed, Delivered and some of the other roles you've done, I just got to ask you about Daring and Grace.
Yes.
There's a website that has just a little blurb. It looks like the website looks like it was done back in 1998, but it has a picture of you.
It was done back in 1998.
But you have like this nice bob haircut, and you look all of 13. in the role.
I was 24.
Really?
I was 24, and the guy who was playing, it was Dick Daring and Tracy Grace, Daring and Grace, and the guy who was playing Dick Daring was 17 in real life, and I was 24.
Oh wow!
And we actually ended up sharing an apartment together in Moncton, New Brunswick, while we shot it, because we didn't want to live in the hotel anymore, and we would get a better place if we, stayed in the same condo. So we shared a condo together. And I remember feeling like I was his mother. All he wanted to do was play video games. And I'm like, dude, come on.
We're here to work.
You want to do something better with your life? Anyway.
Nice. Going looking at some of the different roles through IMDb, which typically has a pretty comprehensive list of the different roles. I did see, and just again want to only touch on this briefly so we can actually get into the meat and potatoes of the interview. I saw that you and both you and Crystal, and I'll bring this up to her as well when we interview her. You both were on Supernatural. Which she will never ever come close to watching Supernatural.
I don't blame you.
I am. It's something that my one of my best friends, Vanessa, kind of wrote me into, and now I'm kind of hooked. So, and it's funny because I remember I went back. I was like, wait a minute, she was, and I went back and I remember that episode. So you and Crystal shared that universe. I know you weren't on the same episode, but then I also saw that you and Eric also share a bit of a universe as well. You were in Cruel Intentions too, yes? And he was in the first one as well.
He was in the original.
Yeah. And so whenever you were getting these roles, and this just earlier on in your career, I know that even for me, I mean, I'm not in any form of entertainment. It's more so in IT. But whenever you get certain projects or certain jobs, it feels like, okay, this could be send me in a really, really good direction. Whenever you were getting some of these roles, did it feel like, okay, this is the one that's going to really get hit the ground running?
It's a good question, and yes, early on, I would sort of naively think, oh my gosh, this is the one. Like, once I do this and this comes out, then I'm set. That's not the way it works. I no longer think that anymore about anything, even if it's like huge. I'm just kind of like, yeah, well, it's another job, and I'll be looking for another one afterwards when this one wraps. So,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, when I first got Signed, Sealed, Delivered, it was actually called Dead Letters at the time. And we shot the pilot. And when we found out that we were going to series, everyone was like, oh my God, you're set, you're made. And I was like, whoa. We have no idea what this means. We just have to take it one day at a time, people.
Right.
And we were very lucky to get as many, years as we did, because initially after the first 1 hours, we were canceled.
Oh, wow.
And they changed the format, and we came back as 2-hour movies instead. So you just never know what's going to happen. It's a crazy business.
With Signed, Sealed, Delivered, and, I know that this has been asked of you several times, whenever it was canceled initially and then it went to the 2-hour movies, that was a really big transition for you guys with the format and how the writing. And I remember when when we went through the first season, we were like, oh, this is such a great show. We can't wait for the next season. Then all of a sudden it was like gone. And we're like, no. But then they brought it back. And it was kind of like when they first announced that it was going to be occasional movies, we were like, we don't like that. But then the first movie happened, and we're like, okay, that makes sense now. So with that, I did read that you were essentially the first postable hired.
That is correct. Yes, I was.
So with that, now, and again, I've read a couple of different interviews, and I've listened to a few as well, and I saw that what was the name? I made sure I wrote it down this time. Joel Rice. You had been working with Joel Rice. And he was the one that said, he had something for you. He wanted you to read for it. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We were doing actually another Hallmark film called Banger 4th of July is I think what it ended up being called, or something like that. It was called something else at the time. And it was shooting in Northern Ontario, like North Bay or something like that. And
right.
he just casually, we were walking from the table read of that to the hotel rooms or something. And he casually was like, "Hey, would you ever live in Vancouver?" And I said, "Are you kidding? I love Vancouver." And he said, "Well, I want you to read for something." And that's how it started. And then I ended up taping 4 times, I think, before I got flown to LA to meet Martha. And then met Martha and got the gig. So, and then after I was hired, because they were still looking for their Oliver when I was hired. So after I was hired, they found Eric.
Right on.
And then they
so
found
he was
Jeff,
number 2.
and then Crystal was number 4. Crystal was last, because that was the hardest role for them to cast, because it was so it's such a particular role. So that was the hardest. That was the biggest challenge for them. And Crystal was at the sort of 11th hour.
Oh, okay.
Hired. So, yeah.
Seeing Crystal's character on there is, I mean, because I've seen her in previous roles. Again, I also remember her from Supernatural as well. And, she's just been she has a wide variety of different roles that she's played. So seeing her come in, prim and proper and just really quirky, perky, and, just stuff just rolling off the top of her head was a complete switch. But the wonderful part that Tash and I find is that from episode 1 of the pilot, from the moment, first of all, from the moment you and Eric are on screen, and then when you meet the final 2, Jeff and Crystal, it's like instant chemistry. It's like instant chemistry. And the way you guys play off of each other, it's almost as if you guys have been in a troupe for years. So, that's really, that is something that instantly drew us to the show. We absolutely love that.
I have to say, I think that's in part due to how brilliant Martha is and her ability to see actors and say, okay, I think these people are going to work really well together. But I also have to give credit to our pilot director, Scott Smith, because when we all met for the table read of the pilot, and then Eric, actually, I didn't know him, but he kind of leaned over to me at the table and he said, "Did you hear what Scott's planning?" And I said, and I had worked with Scott on Daring and Grace, actually.
It comes full circle.
So I knew, yeah, it does. And I knew Scott, and Eric said, "Did you hear what he's planning on doing?" And I said, "No, what?" And he said, "He's planning on doing this, theater game with us, where we have to draw lines from the script out of a hat and then repeat them over and over again." And I just about fell over. I was like, "You've got to be kidding me. No, I'm not doing that." And I was terrified at first, because I thought we were going to have to do it in front of Martha and Joel, the producers.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, this is so weird, and I'm not doing this. And I was like, I waltzed up to Scott Smith and I was like, "Scott, are you actually planning on doing a theater game, like a theater school exercise?" And he was like, "Yeah, I kind of was." And he was so hurt. And I was like, "Really? That's just so lame." And meanwhile, it was my own insecurity that was causing me to be so, against it, because I just didn't want to be judged, on my improvisational skills of this character that I just sort of stepped into. Anyway, we did do the theater game, and it was the most informative and incredible experience I've had, I would say, in a rehearsal or sort of preparation for any film and television job I've done. It was a brilliant idea by Scott, and what it allowed us to do was learn so much about each of our characters, ourselves, but also the other characters. I learned so much about these 3 other people in this hour time span that it would have taken weeks and weeks of shooting to learn all of the things that we learned about each other and our own characters in that 1 hour. And I got to say, it was Scott. It was brilliant, and thank God he stood his ground and didn't let the actors bully him out of it.
as everything is coming to a close after that hour, and he looks over like, "Told you."
Exactly.
So
totally did.
no, you had mentioned something. You had mentioned that it was your own insecurities that you were dealing with whenever you were, when you were trying to fight against that. Now, I know that, especially with the Mental Health Awareness Day that just passed recently, and I saw that you had posted that you deal with anxiety, depression. Same, me, myself as well. Anxiety is something that I really just acknowledged, actually, because I finally was able to recognize what it was, and and it can be crippling, So something that Tash and I were discussing, we were wondering whether or not, because what everyone sees, even in the first episode of in the pilot, the first scene where you're in there with Eric and Crystal and Jeff, it's just you four in there, but what most people don't realize is you have best boys, you have grips, you have dolly operators, you have the director, the producers, all that going on. The lighting is beating down on you and burning you to a crisp.
Not good for the skin.
Is that something that you deal with? Is that could that like performance anxiety? Is that one of your triggers for anxiety, or is that not something that you really deal with?
You would think it would be, and I have had really sort of small moments where I've panicked a little bit once getting to set and going, why am I here? They're going to realize I'm a fraud. Like as soon as I open my mouth, they're going to fire me.
She's been in my head.
Yeah. No, it's very often. I actually read an article about Nicole Kidman. She's an Oscar-winning actress, and apparently, I don't know if it's still the case, but for a while, when she was each job that she would book, she would call her manager, her agent, and try to quit like the day before.
Oh, wow. Because
she had such crippling anxiety and felt like she was going to be discovered as a fraud and couldn't do what she'd been hired to do. So she would try to get out of it. And, obviously she must have some good people behind her because, she's gone ahead and done these things. But yeah, I mean, I think for people to not doubt themselves or not have any pangs of anxiety or panic about taking on a new challenge, I mean, that either they're lying or they're not human, or their ego is so large that, they can't fit their head through the door. So, that's a very real thing that I deal with. And it depends. Sometimes I don't have any anxiety at all about starting a new role or taking on a new character. But then other times there's a ton of it. So it depends on the role and how competent I feel like I'm going to be in it.
Well, I really appreciate your candor in that answer because, a lot. And actually, I don't know if you saw the tweet that I sent over to you, but you actually kind of encouraged me to make my own post about stuff that I've been dealing with as well for many, many years.
Oh, good.
And I think more people need to speak out about mental health, and it is an illness. It is something that you deal with, and it's not something that so many people say, but you got a great life. They have no idea what the individual is going through.
It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
You could have everything in the world, but if your brain isn't functioning the way it needs to and has the right amount of chemicals it needs to for you to feel good, then it doesn't matter what you have on the outside and what other people can see that you have. It's all about brain health, and it's all about the right balance of chemicals in our brains. So I struggled for a long time about needing an antidepressant. I started on an antidepressant when I was 24. I had my first clinical depression, and that was part of my healing, was that I was put on an antidepressant, and I thought, oh well, at some point, I'll get things together and I'll eventually wean myself off of it. And I did try to do that several times, and each time I tried to do it, it was a disaster. So, I finally, in my, I would say mid-30s, I realized that that was just my brain chemistry. For whatever reason, I was born with not enough serotonin or not enough dopamine or whatever, and I need to give myself that in order to be able to live my best life. And luckily it worked. And luckily I'm somebody that, I'm blessed. I don't have side effects from it. And, as long as I take it, I live my best life.
That is amazing to hear. And let this be a lesson to you kids. If you are 24 years old and you are having to work with a 17-year-old and live in an apartment with him, you may need antidepressants. That's kind of how we're pulling that full circle. Sorry, I make a lot of jokes sometimes off color. I apologize.
No, I love it.
But okay, so with your approach to facing your anxiety and things like that, your role with Shane, how confident she is, with how sure of herself. Do you sometimes bring some of that in to help work out like your day-to-day things that you face?
I wouldn't quite say yes to that, but I would say that Shane is a character that I have learned a lot from, and I have grown as a person as a result of playing her, for sure. And for slipping into her shoes, into her skin, what have you, for as long as I did there, of course that character has influenced me in my own life a great deal. And I mean, she's such a fantastic, strong woman. But what I love about Shane is that despite her strengths, she is also has her own weaknesses and her own struggles and her own doubts about where she should be at. And her confidence is in her abilities and in her intelligence. But then, on a social level, she, I remember the first when we shot the pilot, and I remember how awkward she was with these people because she just couldn't wrap her head around who these people were, and they freaked her out, and you can see why, because she was such a pragmatic sort of, if she's very sort of, if I can't see it, it doesn't exist. And then she has these three people that are all talking about God and divine delivery and trust the timing. And she was like, no, if I can't see it on my computer, it doesn't exist.
Right.
So you guys are all crazy. And so her journey, her evolution, her growth has certainly influenced me over the years.
Now, when you first read for Shane, before when you got the time where we had to make the tapes, what was your first impression of the character?
I remember, God bless my husband, because he's a writer, and he also as an aspiring director, and he's helped me a ton with self tapes.
Okay.
Where I have to audition, and I get to put myself on tape. That's why it's called self tape. So it's not in front of a producer or director, and you can do as many takes as you want. And and my husband would often read for me and also direct me. And he did so for the 4 tapes for Signed, Sealed, Delivered. And I actually don't think I would have gotten the role if it weren't for him.
Right on.
He's a very, very good director. But I remember him saying to me, you have to be less of a bitch. And I did when I was younger.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And actually Shane has really, really helped me with this. When I was younger, I did have a tendency, when I would get the role of a strong woman to audition for, that it would be sort of painted with this sort of one level brush of like, don't mess with me. And and perhaps with zero vulnerability, and that's why that's how I felt a strong woman would be, like on TV. But what I realized through playing Shane through working to get the role of Shane is that most of the reason why people fall in love with her is because of her vulnerability, despite the fact that she's such a strong woman.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the biggest challenge initially for me, was being able to let that vulnerability seep through and see little hints and signs of it in the beginning, because I wanted, and of course Martha wanted, and everybody wanted people to like her.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're just sort of a whitewashed, sort of strong, like don't mess with me kind of chick, people are kind of, I don't know about that. I don't really relate, or I don't really like her. There's nothing really,
I kind of got I got a sense of that strong character role that you played in Foolproof. Yes, I've done my research. Playing the pickpocket, that character was incredibly sure of herself. And it was kind of like I'm just going to steamroll over everybody. And there's a incredible contrast to from that role, as well as in something that hopefully we'll be able to get some time in to discuss this as well. Your role in Orphan Black. There is a massive contrast from those roles to Shane, and something we've started out with this podcast. We've started out at the very beginning. We've seen every single episode, but we're starting at the beginning and going episode by episode, and then movie by movie, doing reviews and discussions. And she was there. She made mention of this today. There's one thing for watching a movie, but then or a TV show, and then another with watching it with the intention of reviewing. So you pick up on little nuances. And the first episode, when they're the first episode whenever they're talking about the spoons. And there's just one little part where you have your laptop open, you go, what is it with this kid and spoons? And you just go back to your laptop, and I was like, that's me. That's how I would have been. But the scene that I really wanted to bring up, which she pointed out to me, and we actually rewound it so I could see it, when Valerie Harper is talking to you guys in the second episode. Mm-hmm. And they're all bantering back and forth, and they're all excited about dead letters and everything. And she's going and giving her, she's giving her monologue, and Oliver's like, yeah, he's soaking it all in. They just flash to you for like 3 seconds, and you look her up and down like, is she really saying all this and believing it?
Yeah.
Like,
you be crazy, lady.
Yes. There was so much. That's one thing that she has really helped me see with the show is there's so much exquisite acting happening in the background of this show, where they show either Crystal and Jeff kind of blurred out, and they're having a little side conversation. There's so much being said in that moment without anything being said, or the looks that you'll give Eric from across a room.
Or the whole iPad thing where he's in the background and you assure the woman that no, they were all different numbers.
Yes.
And him just going, oh my God.
That's something we made mention of in the last episode, because when you guys are at the retirement home, you have the kleptomaniac lady that stole your iPad, and you are going and you're getting the iPad back, and I don't even know if Oliver or Eric's character Oliver could actually even hear what you were saying, but the second he knew you were talking, he just face palms like, oh, what's she saying? So again, the writing for the show, and then the way that you guys take the words and the emotes off of the page and put it is something that really drew us to this show, really over top of any other Hallmark show that's out there, in my opinion. Obviously there, and this is something that at the very end we'll ask you, but there is a heavy Twitter campaign from the Postables trying to get the show another couple movies. Don't know if you're at liberty to speak on that topic at all, but
I wish I had an answer. I don't. I don't know why Hallmark hasn't made a decision on the show. I think either way it would be nice to know.
Right. Yes.
Obviously the cast and Martha the creative side of it, none of us are obligated, where all of our contracts have expired. So none of us are obligated to do any more. But I do know that we all want to. So I think it's just a matter of Hallmark figuring out what they want.
Right.
But I would love for them to either say, yeah, we don't know how many, maybe it'll be one, maybe it'll be a couple or whatever, or say, yeah, no, the series, the franchise is done, and we have all this wonderful, these wonderful movies and episodes, and we'll keep re-airing them, but there won't be anything new. I would just love to have an answer either way.
Yeah. You're like,
I think all the Postables would too.
Yes.
As you're sitting here like, and I gotta work. Okay, so Tash actually brought up a few questions as well. There was a couple, because we've noticed that you guys have done a couple of location shoots. Like there was one where you guys were out in a cow pasture.
Yeah. I was just curious. He had said you shoot in Vancouver. So do you do a lot of shooting around in that area, or is it all just right there?
No, we actually shoot the majority of the show outside of Vancouver. Gotcha. So there's a lot of smaller suburbs on the outskirts of Toronto, Vancouver, like Langley, and what are some of the other ones? We shot in Abbotsford. Mm-hmm. We actually shot in Mission, which is like 3 hours outside of Vancouver.
I was going to say, that's a ways from Vancouver.
And our original DLO was in Britannia, with Britannia Beach, which is up the Sea to Sky Highway from Vancouver up towards Whistler, about halfway to Whistler, just on the outskirts of Squamish. And we've shot in Squamish as well. So actually, I would say about 75 to 80% has been shot outside of the city of Vancouver.
Wow.
And only about 20 to 25% shot in Vancouver.
And of all those places, has there been a place that was your favorite to shoot at?
Oh, definitely Britannia Beach. The DLO, and we had, so our sets up there were the DLO and the grill, the mailbox grill. And also in the pilot, the bar. I was going to
ask.
So initially the postable bar, I think, got replaced with a grill because of just the connotations of a bar on Hallmark and, drinking and all of that. So then it became the mailbox grill. Which I actually was thrilled about, because the mailbox grill was one of my favorite sets. It was so beautiful.
Yeah, it is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, the set designer who started the show and was with us for for the entire series. She stayed with us for the entire series. Was Renee Reed, and Postables can look her up on IMDb. She's working on big shows now for like the CW and stuff. She's so talented. So the mailbox grill was her. And her baby, and as was the DLO, and these sets were just mind-blowingly detailed and beautiful, and you could see the thought that had gone into each little detail on those sets. And I remember the first time walking onto the DLO set, and I actually cried. Like, I actually had tears, because I was just so blown away with how beautiful it was, and that, we were blessed enough to have someone that cared that much creating our space. Because it makes a huge difference as an actor. It is to create something like Signed, Sealed, Delivered, or any other successful or wonderful show or film. It's such a collective effort, and I often say, like, actors often get all the sort of attention because it's our faces that people see and relate to and stuff. But, I often say, without everybody else, we would just be sitting in a dark room on the floor naked. and that would be
that would be a completely different show.
Yeah, it would be. But like, it's just, there's just so many people involved in creating that world and making it live. And so when I walked in, and I just was like, wow, we're really lucky. We're really lucky to be able to bring our characters and play in this space that tells us so much. It gave us so much to work with. I mean, I remember moments we'd be shooting and I would discover something, as Shane in the DLO that I hadn't seen before, because there were all these tiny little details that she had put in there, and letters upon letters upon letters that had different names on them, and we'd be sorting mail and I'd be like, oh, that's a funny name, like, and there'd be names of crew members on them hidden, that we would find these little like treats, and it was just it was amazing. It's been such a gift to be a part of that show and play Shane, and have the growth, have the time to have a character grow like that, because a lot of the times shows get canceled after 2 seasons, or sometimes even the pilot doesn't get picked up, so you just do the pilot. Then you're like, okay, goodbye. But to be able to have lived with her for so long and these characters for so long, it's been such a gift as an actor. Very, very grateful for it.
Looking at the set, especially the DLO, and you're right, there is so. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I wasn't sure whether or not you guys were actually shooting in an actual like mailroom, because there's so much that goes into it, and there's occasionally I'll look and I'm like, how are those 4 ever going to get to all of that mail? Because there's so much in there. And I was like, Oliver better pick a letter opener a lot faster than that, because he's like, it's like, look, we got work to do, man. Come on. But
so true.
Now, something else that goes into the character is dancing. Now, we were actually talking about this right before. Did you? Are you a dancer? Are you familiar with dancing at all before the show?
I went to theater school, and at theater school we had a dance component. So we would take dance once a week, I think it was.
Okay.
So I did that for 2.5, almost 3 years. But that was the extent of my dance training.
Did they tell you that there was going to be this much dancing in it?
No, I am not naturally gifted in dance. I certainly am not. It takes a lot of practice for me to make it look good. I need a lot of help. However, I absolutely love dance.
Right
so it's, and when I was younger, I used to dance around the living room and just make my own moves up and be like, I am such a good dancer. No. So I both loved and kind of hated the dance component in a way, just because it was challenging, but I do love it. And I said to Joel at one point, I was like, I just want to, if I could just get on Dancing with the Stars, I would be like, that would be my dream. I would
love that.
I would probably get kicked off the first week, but oh my God, I would love it. I would love every second of it.
Now, is Eric a good dancer?
Yeah.
This is going right back to the beginning when you said you were 36. It's your turn now. That is wonderful. Oh, okay. So we'll just go ahead and move on past that. So
let's just say it doesn't come naturally.
So there was extra practice then that needed to go into it.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, so what would you say was your favorite moment filming on the show?
Oh my gosh!
I know that's a loaded question because
there's to one. Yeah.
Or something that stands out, I should say.
Well, I want to give you an answer I haven't used before in a way, because I've talked about a couple moments for me on the show. One being episode 7, which was when it was in the series. It was the one with the young kid who was the musician who was in the motorcycle accident.
I remember that one. Yes.
Can't remember what the episode was called, but there was a moment I can recall it like it was yesterday, where I had this character realization while we were in the middle of shooting, and it was this realization of just how much Shane was in love with Oliver. And it was this sort of surreal moment where it wasn't contrived. It came out of nowhere while shooting, and I had this like massive realization as the character, and started to cry while we were shooting. And Shane's not supposed to cry at that point. And I couldn't stop. I mean, I was just overwhelmed with this revelation for this woman to realize. Anyway, and I remember Scott Smith, who was directing that episode as well. And I remember he said, "What is wrong with you? Are you pregnant?" I couldn't, because first of all, I couldn't stop crying. And secondly, to anybody else, why the heck, woman, are you like sobbing your face off? Because nobody knew what I had just sort of realized,
Gotcha.
Right? So that was a moment that I'll never forget. And it was quite cool as an actor to have that kind of a, whoa, that's really neat.
It's like you really tied into the character at that moment, like the nuance of it.
Yeah, like like it was just like, whoa, I don't know, those are few and far between, I think, moments as an actor. So that was pretty cool.
And I think that episode was something good.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. So that was, what else? Let me think. Well, I mean, God, just being able to work with some of the other actors that have come on to the show, meeting and working with Carol Burnett was, I mean, that was.
I will say that
I don't have words to describe it.
I have a list.
She's a legend.
I have a list on the spreadsheet that you probably see us looking at occasionally, and it's guests that I'm lobbying to get, or I have already made contact with. Jeff is incredibly hard to get a hold of, and I saw an interview where Crystal said that they're really good friends, and so whenever I talk to Crystal, I'm like, can you kind of put a little birdie in Jeff's ear to see whether or not he would like to be on the show, because I know a lot of the fans really would like to hear from him as well. And I mean, his Twitter bio says he is a conversationalist. I'm like, well, then let's talk, please. But one of the names on there is Carol Burnett. I mean, I found her publicist and management company, and I have an email sitting there waiting to send, but I'm like intimidated to send it because I'm not, because it's like, don't blame you. Because I grew up watching her. She I mean, as a little kid, while I watched cartoons and everything, but if they said, hey, Carol Burnett show's on, I was glued to the TV because I always found her amazing, and she just carries this presence with her. Not only when she's on, doing like improv and, when she was doing her variety show, but on screen, even in To the Altar. Her moments were some of, those are like belly laughs that she brings. And, she's seems always on. So that is something that, definitely as an actor for you guys had to have been an amazing experience.
Well, I grew up, I probably watched the movie Annie, the original.
That was your first role, wasn't it?
80 times. And yes, my first role as a professionally paid actor was in the musical Annie at a summer stock theater, and I was an orphan. I wasn't Annie. I was an orphan. So I was in the chorus, and it was the moment where I was like, "Oh, you get paid to do this? This is awesome! I want to do that for a living." And it really was that moment for me. And I said to my parents, okay, well, I'm good. I don't need to go to school anymore. I'm just going to do this. And they were like, oh, hell no.
You're going to school.
So, yeah. So I had to finish high school, and then it was up to me what I wanted to do after. But yeah, so I watched Annie probably about 80 times as I grew up as a child. And I know I knew all the words to all the songs, and she's Mrs. Hannigan. I mean, right. And she's so bloody brilliant in it. I remember the first day she was on set, like I was kind of speechless. Like I didn't really know what to say. I just was like, if you say something, you're going to sound like a moron, just like mouth shut. I'd be like nodding my head a lot.
So now, please tell me that whenever your parents said, no, you have to go to school, please tell me that you said, oh, it's a hard knock life. Sorry. Good night, everybody. I will see you next week. I'm done. The terrible dad joke. Sorry. We have 4 kids, and I'm well versed in the dad jokes. Which really quick, because
good dad joke.
Thank you. Now we have about 10 minutes left in our time. I just want really quick wanted to ask. With us having 4 kids, you have children? I
do. I have a daughter. She's 6.
Right on. Okay. Well, we have a 6-year-old as well, and he. If he had been down here, he would have poked his head in here a couple of times. But our oldest is corralling him at the moment.
Oh, nice, good.
So,
good.
With you having to go on location, does your daughter go with you, or is that something? Yeah. Or
she has so yes, and now kind of no. So when she was younger, it was so much easier to just pack up and drag her around with us. And she went everywhere with us. And luckily, because my husband's a writer, he can sort of write wherever he is. So we would just pick up and she would come along. And we lived in LA for 4 months at one point in between shooting SSD. And we lived in Vancouver, and we traveled all sorts of different places with her. And I would bring her and then I would say it was in her first year of kindergarten when I first really sort of noticed that the constantly being pulled one way and then put back and then pulled back out. And I could see it taking its toll on her emotionally. And I was like, we can't do this anymore. Like, I don't want to keep pulling her out and putting her back in. So we made a choice to move to Vancouver for all of last year. So we found a place and lived there for a year. And I would have stayed. All of our family is back here in Ontario, and so we made the choice when we didn't know the future of the show to move back. Right. But now I hope that she will be able to come and visit for 3, 4, 5 days at a time. But now that she's in school and has a schedule, and I would like to try to give her that security of knowing what's going on every day. And it's confusing for little ones, and we're like, why am I here now? And what am I doing?
It can only be an adventure for so long before the stability does need to sink in. We totally get that. All right,
but it's tough. It's tough as a working mom because I want to be with my child. I don't want to be separated. But I think I have to put her sort of emotional security and stuff first before my own.
Well, as parents, that is something that if you're responsible as you are, that is something that is you sacrifice so that they can have the things that that we want them to be able to have. We want them to be able to have that stability. So that's really, really awesome, especially, again, as a parent. As parents, we love hearing that. So as we wrap up, because we again are very, very thankful for you for doing the interview. I'm
having a wonderful time. I mean, feel free to go over a little bit. Don't take advantage, but we
you're like,
over a little bit.
It's 1:30 in the morning. Shut up, Kenny, please. Okay. So I want to ask you a few last questions. Who would be your dream actor or actress to work with?
Whew, that's a tough one. There's so many.
I know you already worked with Deadpool, so I mean.
Yes, my friend Ryan. There's just so many talented, wonderful actors out there. I love Cate Blanchett. I would love to work with her. I would love to work with Harrison Ford.
Yeah, who wouldn't?
And growing up, my dream, I wanted desperately to work with Alan Rickman, and unfortunately he has passed. So I won't ever realize that dream. But he is and still remains one of my favorite performers.
Total
it's
side
incredible.
Note. In relation to you saying Alan Rickman, total side note, one of the Postables made a post the other day about, I think it was, it was one of the Renew Sign Seal Delivered tweets, and they were saying something like wave a magic wand or whatever, and it was one of the people that writes the fan fiction. So I replied, and I tagged Bill, president of Hallmark as well, and I was like, okay, so now I'm desperately wanting to see. They used the GIF of Harry and Harry Potter trying to grab a letter, and I was like, now I desperately want to see one of those letters getting dropped off at the DLO, and then seeing the four Postables introduced to the Wizarding World, and then I was like, can you just imagine Shane having Shane having square off with Snape, Norman being fascinated by Hagrid. Rita having amazing conversations with McGonagall, and then of course Oliver and Dumbledore having some fireside chats would be absolutely amazing. And I was like, someone needs to write that, or I'll write it myself. Because
as long as we can have an owl deliver the letter,
exactly,
to the DLO,
yes,
have to have an owl deliver, because then Rita would just lose her mind, right?
Exactly.
And that's how the episode starts. Errol, Ron's owl, flies into the window of the DLO and drops the letter. So there you
perfect.
go. Alan Rickman, that is a really, really good pull, and I could easily see, rest in peace. But I could have easily seen you two vibing off of each other really, really well, because he is by far, like, I know he had roles before this, but the second I saw him as Hans Gruber, I was hooked. He was amazing.
Yeah. He's such a good actor.
Now, you've done horror, thrillers, comedy, and action. What's your favorite genre to do, and which one would you like to explore more?
That's a good question. I don't think I have a favorite genre, to be honest. For me, it's all about the character. So it doesn't matter what genre it's in. If the character speaks to me or intrigues me, will challenge me, then the genre, doesn't matter. To watch, one of my favorite genres is horror, which is kind of hilarious because I don't think anybody would guess that about me. But my best friend and I and my husband often would sit down, and this was before Finley, sit down and spend our Friday nights or Saturday nights watching like really scary horror movies. And actually, when I was pregnant, I watched so many of them that I feel like they may have affected my daughter. She's always got a crush on the bad guy, and I'm like, whoa,
like, no.
So, and then as far as what I'd like to explore more, I would really like to play more sort of in a detective, or I would love to go gritty, like more a sort of grittier with detective role, or or like a profiler, like a psychological profiler,
right
or Something dark like that. I would love to sink my teeth into. But really, it is, for me, it's about connecting to a character and knowing that if I take on that character, I'm going to be challenged. I like to constantly do different things. And the further away the character is from myself, the better.
I actually wanted to ask you, when you got the character of Shane, or like when you first were approached about it, was it a character that you immediately were like, this is for me? Or was it something that you really had to?
No, in fact, I was like, I don't get this woman. Like I was a little bit like, no, but it was also, I mean, I loved the script.
Yeah.
I loved the pilot script, and I certainly was intrigued by the story but as far as Shane McInerney went, I was kind of like, I don't know, like I wasn't blown away, and or I wasn't like immediately intrigued and said, I have to play this character. But I cannot say enough of how I feel like it was all meant to be, and that the things that I didn't see initially, I certainly learned over time, and am so grateful for the opportunity, because that character has taught me a lot, an awful lot. So yeah, no, it's funny. And sometimes that happens, right? Where you initially are like, no, I don't really feel like this would be, the best thing for me, or I'm not that all excited about it, but I'll do it because it's a good job, or it's a good director I want to work with.
Yeah.
And then most times, more often than not, it comes and surprises you, and you're like, whoa, I didn't realize I was going to figure that out and learn that, and have to go delve into different parts of myself to make this person live and be real.
Did it take like multiple episodes before that happened, or was it the whole?
No, it was as soon as we. Be honest, I was just going to say, as soon as we started doing that exercise, and I started discovering these things about this woman and this character, I was like, oh, and then got so excited about it, and then continued with each script I would read, because Martha is so brilliant. And the thing I loved about reading Martha's work is that I would read the script 6-7 times, and every time would find something I had missed, a connection to a previous episode, or a connection with one character to another, or a revelation for Shane that didn't pop up as, and the other incredible thing about working on Martha's show is that often while shooting, I would keep discovering these amazing things that I hadn't, just by reading it or doing my homework. It took being in the atmosphere, being with Oliver or Rita or Norman or whoever was, being with these characters for me to discover these things and continue to discover them. And that, that is such a gift. Martha gave us all a gift, not just myself and the cast and the actors and crew that are part of the show, but everybody who gets to tune in and watch it. There's just so many layers to her work, and you can watch it over and over and over again and continually discover new things.
And it's also not that predictable. The predictable thing that happens, especially in Hallmark movies, where, guy meets girl, they fall in love, have their little spat, then everything's fine. You never know where the show's going to go ever.
With SSD,
true.
Watching each movie, we'll sit there and it's like, wait a minute, it's the grandmother. Wait, no, it's not. Wait, the grandmother she's nice. No, it's not her. What? I have no idea what's going on right now. I mean, that happens every single episode. So Martha's writing is absolutely amazing. I hope to have her on the DLO after the show as well. Would love to chat with her for a little bit. And, really, it's just, I think this show has become a really meaningful part in a lot of people's lives, and not just because of the writing, not just because of the characters, but something that Tash has said to me, which I think is completely and totally true, is it's almost a bit of a bridge for people that either don't have any form of faith or anything, kind of like how Shane started out, as well as people who do have a faith system, and it kind of bridges that gap to where it's like, hey, look, we can kind of meet in the middle and have something that we can enjoy, because it doesn't, there are some Hallmark movies, and not just Hallmark, but there are some, just Lifetime movies where they'll take the religion aspect and they'll beat you over the head with it, and they're like, this is Jesus, this is a Jesus brick, and they beat you to death with it. And it kind of turns people off to the story. But then with Signed, Sealed, Delivered, with Oliver's convictions and how he brings them out, and the way Eric emotes them is amazing. And then how he's kind of helped open the possibility for Shane of, well, maybe there's something to this. Maybe I can see, I would love for there to be some weird alternate universe where Shane of now gets a chance to meet Shane from the pilot, and just to see how polar different they are. So yeah, I think this is something that, hopefully we'll get more movies. If not, we have something. We have like a lightning in the bottle of the series, and then a nice set of movies. And Bill and Michelle, if you guys watch this, that's not me endorsing you ending it. Completely not. But I think that you guys have created something special, as a group, and we all really, really appreciate what you guys have brought to the table.
Well, I just want to say how much I appreciate our postables and our fans, and I cannot express enough my heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you. It's such an incredible group of people that have come together and supported the show, but also people that have opened up and shared parts of their lives that I'm sure they never thought that they would share with strangers. The thing that has struck me the most, I would say, or has had the biggest impact on me, is the Living Letters section of Alameda and Downing, that blog, because these people that don't know us and they watch us create this world that's fictional, they're willing to put out there their biggest struggles in life, their challenges with illness and dealing with death and dealing with addiction and all sorts of things that and mental illness and things that people don't talk about, things that people keep behind the closed doors and keep private. And people have shared things that I don't think they would normally would, and I think it's because the show has given people permission, and it has this wonderful feeling of inclusiveness,
exactly.
that unfortunately right now in the world is sort of dissolving. And what I love about the show and what it's done is that it has sort of sewn that net of inclusiveness with this group of people. And I watch too, like when new people discover the show and come on and onto social media and say, hey, I just discovered, like, can I be a postable? And the amount of people that say, yes, you can, and welcome, and we love you.
That's us. We had been watching the show for forever, and I'm very big on social media. I used to train people how to use social media for business, stuff like that. And we watched To the Altar, and I went on and I just happened to use the hashtag postables just because of the show. And next thing you know, it's like, and I'm like, what's going on? It was like lifting up a rock and there's a full ant colony. So I just said, hi, postables. And I had made mention of us watching To the Altar and how we were talking about how it would be cool if we started a podcast based around the show. I made that post, walked away from my desk for 45 minutes, come back, 127 notifications. And I'm like, what? So I was like, so I guess you guys like this idea. I walked away for another half hour, came back, another 120. I'm like, what is going on? And next thing you know, I'm getting T-shirts mailed to us, and they're like, next time we do a Postables on the Go, you guys have to go, and it's just been phenomenal. And for us, we just moved. You had just said about people open up about illness and addiction and things like that. We moved out to Oregon, where we're at now, about 5 years ago, a little over 5 years ago, and shortly after we moved here, probably about 6 months after we moved here, she fell ill, and it just got worse.
I did read that.
Yeah,
I did read that about your illness. Yeah.
So we never had a chance to really get out and meet anybody. We never got a chance. So we've lived here for 5 years and barely know anyone, except for through work or through the kids' school and what have you. So, and this show has been a big comfort for her and for us, because it's something that we can share together. It's not like she's going to sit down and say, "Hey, babe, let's watch Walking Dead tonight." That's not going to happen. So we sit down.
No. No, for me, dealing with my illness, whether it's my doctor that's told me or my therapist, because I did not have anxiety or depression until I got sick. But dealing with that, all my doctors have said, no, you need to focus your everything on happiness and positivity.
Positivity, yes.
Anything else, I mentally and physically and emotionally I can't handle it. So, like I've said multiple times on previous episodes of this, I have a happy bubble. Science Healed and Delivered is in my happy bubble. It makes me feel good. Even if it's a show episode that makes me cry, or has like the last one where I'm like with the woman with the gun.
During
the stressful parts, I'm like,
she's like, she put her head over. She's like, I'm supposed to be in happy bubble, not stress bubble. I'm just going to wait like that.
But even at the end of that, you still feel good for what you've watched. And that's one of the reasons I love the show, because it makes me feel good. Even on my bad days, it makes me feel good.
So again,
Martha weaves such hope into every story, even when there are moments where it feels like perhaps hope is lost. There's always one of the characters or some situation that guides us back to remembering that there is always hope, and there are good people always, and that the world is a good place.
Yes.
Right. Despite some not so great things, but as a whole, and it's my one of the things that Martha's so brilliant at doing is weaving those tense moments, those sad moments with levity and comedy and truth and friendship and love, and she's just awesome.
The last episode that we just rewatched was the one she was just speaking of, where it was the one with the spoons and the little boy. And even though it was an incredibly sad moment that just broke my heart, seeing Jeff getting tearing up, and then seeing Eric put his arm around him, and just that moment, it's this is a moment that just sucks out loud, but I got you, man. That was there. So again. So
I remember I was watching them shoot that scene. I was beside them but when you go into close-ups and stuff, you're not necessarily needed. And if I recall correctly, it was a very long day, and so we'd been standing all day, and they were doing the close-up on Eric and Jeff, and so they said to Crystal and I, if you guys want to sit down, go ahead and sit down. So I remember taking a seat behind the monitors where you can see what's being shot, the setup and the lens and everything, and I remember that moment very clearly because Jeff is hilarious and very, very witty and dry and very until you get to know him, somewhat guarded. And I remember watching that moment and realizing, oh wow, he's really talented. Like he's not just a comedian, you know. And I remember that very vividly, going, oh whoa. We got a really good cast.
Yes, every one of you are has such versatility. I mean, I remember the most, other than Signed, Sealed, Delivered, the most recent thing that I saw you in was 12 Monkeys, and as Dr. Ailey. That's one of my favorite movies and franchises. So when it went to series and they expanded on the mythos, that was like I gotta watch it every single week. And then when they brought in Dr. Ailey's mother and it's you, I was like, oh, I know her. But and again, completely different. And then your character on Orphan Black, girl, you scary.
Bonnie.
Don't mention what she does because you'll give her nightmares. But let's just say sewing is really it's a good knack for you.
The pastime.
So
Bonnie.
anyway, so
with a needle and thread.
So with that being said, is there before we let you carry on with your evening, because I know that you are on the East Coast right now, so it's 11 o'clock over there. Is there anything upcoming that you have that you would like to let the Postables know about? Any projects or anything, or are you kind of taking a break for a little bit until you get word?
Or can you not say?
Or can you not say?
I have been taking a break because we moved across the country and we were reestablishing ourselves here. However, I am going out to Newfoundland in a little bit to shoot something out there. Just a guest star on a new Canadian show, so that's fun. And then I have lots of things that I want to do also outside of the acting world. I want to become more active in educating people about the Me Too movement and sort of trying to initiate something that doesn't just focus on young women, but also brings in the young men. And I'd love to try to I'd love to try to develop something or create something where there can be an open dialogue with both young men and women. And then I'm also a certified Pilates teacher, so
saw that.
I'm sort of figuring out how that fits into my life. And then also I also want to direct someday. So
right on.
I've got lots of things that I'm juggling all at once, and then first and foremost being a mom. So
right.
There's a lot going on, but yeah, no, I'm anxiously awaiting either or both another SSD or an exciting new character to come and knock on my door.
well, any project that you do, anything that you have coming up, please feel free to shoot me a tweet. Let me know so that we can push it out there to. Because I know our fan base is slowly growing as well, so would love to be able to put that out there. I know everyone is feverishly waiting for this episode, so they'll be really excited about that. And just really quick touching on the whole Me Too movement, and you said you want to bring in boys as well, and I think that is incredibly important because we need to move, in my opinion, I'm not trying to get political or anything, but I think we really need to move away from the boys will be boys mentality, because when they say, oh, just deal with the boys will be boys, they pull hair, they'll kick you in the shit. You know what? How about you just teach them to treat not just women, but just people in general as regular human beings, not this thing. I mean, we're not Cro-Magnon men anymore. You're not going to beat them over the head with a bat and then carry them away by their hair. That's not how we're supposed to behave anymore. Raise your boys up to actually treat people with kindness and empathy. And there's one comedian, it's funny, but it's also not funny because it's serious. He says, guys, we need to be careful. Don't say things to women that you don't want, on the street, that you don't want a guy to say to you in prison. I mean, and
good point.
It's that there's so much, and I could go on for hours, so I won't. But there's so much that needs to be changed and rectified with how people are brought up when it comes to just general respect for people. So anything that right now I'm pledging right now, any type of project that you do involving that, if you move forward with that, if you know of someone that is doing something and you're getting involved, let me know. 100% behind you, and we'll do whatever I can to help progress it. Would love to. I have right now, I'm working on about 5 different podcasts that we're working on producing. Our next one that we're going to be doing is a Christmas movie podcast, because we are Christmas nutcases. Still
nice.
already playing Christmas music, but
that's part of that happy bubble.
Yes,
exactly.
Yes. So, but there's also going to be just general entertainment or just general. There's a podcast that I'm really building right now called People I Like, which is just that, just people I like, and I want to hear about what they're doing and stuff that they have, coming up, and give them a platform to be able to speak out about it, or just to tell funny stories. I like storytellers, so anything that you have coming up, please let me know, and I'll do whatever I can to help progress that. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Kristin. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. I had such a nice time chatting with you both.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Also, because I haven't seen the show, perhaps you already have this, but do you have a jingle for DLO After the Show?
We actually, I wrote one.
Good. Okay,
I wrote one.
I hope it becomes part of it, or if it hasn't already, because as soon as I heard that, or I read that, I was like, oh, I could hear the song in my head.
Well, there's no words. There's no words. But I wanted.
It would be like, DLO After the Show or something like, come on, it has to be those words.
Little funny, funny bit. She actually named the show. She came up with the show, and my original thought for the name of the show was, wait, I'm trying to remember what it was now.
I didn't like it.
She didn't like it. I put out, I had a name for the show, and I can't remember what it was, and I did a poll for it, and she came up with a name, and she put it out there as well, and
no, you just put mine on the poll.
Okay, yeah, I put yours on the poll, and there was like 2 or 3 other ones, and Eric said DLO After the Show. That is brilliant, and everyone's like, President. He named it. He gave his vote of approval. So I guess we gotta go with the captain of the ship. So yes, she is.
It's great.
And we ran.
Well, good job, Tash.
Thank you.
We ran a marketing and web design business for 10 years, or 8 to 10 years over in Georgia, and I started, it kind of started out as me by myself, and because this was right when everything tanked economy-wise.
Right.
The bubble burst, and I mean, I put in applications at Walmart, Taco Bell. No one was hiring. So we were like, we have a background. Let's kind of go alone on our own. And we had just moved to Georgia, so we knew nobody again. So one day I went to get a client meeting, and I was having a really hard time with one specific bit of code. And I had been up all night, and then I was going to a client meeting, and Tash was like, so what are you having problems with? And I explained it to her, and she had never done any coding. So she's like, well, I'll take a look at it. So I was like, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, oh, okay, that's I spent all night.
Sure.
I got home 3 hours later from the appointment. She had her desk set up across from mine, and she goes, "Fixed it." I'm like, "Squeeze me?" And from that moment on, we work together, and we always bounce ideas off of each other. So when it comes to like naming things, she always, I'll be like, "This is the name for it." She's like, "No, it's not. Let's try this." And I'm like, "That's better." So when I put this episode out, which it should go up on Tuesday, it will, it'll be mixed down. We put these up on YouTube as well, and not just on the podcast, on iTunes and all that good stuff. But I mix in the intro and the outro. I wanted something that sounded very similar to the original song that you guys had, "Deliver Me."
Yes.
And so I wanted to be kind of synergistic to that. I never thought about words, and I don't have a singing voice except for if I'm singing Dave Matthews Band. So,
well, guess what? I will bet you $100 that if you can get Martha Williamson on your show, she will sing it for you. She will record it for you.
That's a bet. That's a bet. And now I'm going to try. I'm going to try it. Okay, so now I have a mission, and I'm like, I'm energized, I need to do it. So, again, thank you so much. I'm an idiot. I'm tired. Thank you again so much for being on the show. And most everyone knows your social media, the Twitter, Instagram. Do you have any other social media out there that you want to share, or just those are the main ones?
Those are the only two.
Okay, right on. So again, you guys, and it's Kristin T. Booth, yes?
It is, okay. Yes.
So,
T for Tara.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So again, everyone, it's on Twitter and Instagram, Kristin T. Booth, and that's Kristin with an I, not an E at the end. And I'll also put that up as an overlay on the screen for this. So right now, there you can. In the future, it pops up. I promise. But again, so thank you again for being on the show, and everyone, be on the lookout for the next episode of DLO After the Show. We're gonna start the reviews again, probably next weekend. So this is gonna be the episode that we release on Tuesday, and then we'll go back to our regular scheduled programs. I'll be looking to again get some of the guests that we're going to try to get. I know Eric has agreed to be on the show. Crystal has agreed as well. I'm going to lobby all of you to try to help me get Jeff on. But looking at trying to get like Valerie Bertinelli, Keb Mo, Jill Morrison, Tammy Gillis, everyone. I'm trying to get everybody on there.
Brett, that's amazing. Well, I will try to get a hold of Gigi and push some buttons.
Appreciate it, because I don't think he's very active on Twitter anymore.
No, he's not very active on any social media forums.
And
I feel his pain.
He likes to keep to himself.
And again, I've watched some of the shorts that he has up online, and dude's brilliant. So you
know what? Offer him a taco.
Okay. And you know what?
Loves tacos.
I will send him a taco. I will.
There you go.
I just need to know. I need to know whereabouts, like the general vicinity, and I will find an Uber Eats, and he will have like 20 tacos at his door. If you look at any of my tweets, look for the hashtag Twitter bribes, because I'm like, I'll send you cookies.
You should direct message him and be like, dude, all I need is your address, and I'll send you tacos.
Yeah, I'll send you some tacos, man, and they will be the best dang tacos he will ever eat, and it'll be, and I'll even send a picture of what is it? I want to say it was Oliver, where he's like, more please, but it'll just be like a podcast, please, sir.
Fantastic.
Yes, I think I think we can go ahead and wrap this one up. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening to DLO After the Show. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, as well as like and share. I hate saying that. It's cheesy and it's repetitive, but it helps bring the views up, and it brings more people in. Join the Postables Army, look for that hashtag, and then we can tell Hallmark that we need more SSD. Again, thank you so much, Kristin, and we will see you guys on the next episode of DLO After the Show. Bye!
Bye!